Welcome back to the Crossroad Diner, that place where your spirit goes when it's time to change direction. Today, Crossroad Coaching takes a little bit deeper look at beliefs and particularly limiting beliefs. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Monday in the Crossroad Diner. Where are we, John?
Back in the corner booth, Steve, where we do a little bit of coaching, all centered around the idea of helping people navigate change.
Navigation of change. Now, one of my great teachers said, pioneers go places that other people have not gone yet, and they send back maps. And the dependability of that map is the first predictor of the success of the people who follow that. Now, John and I have both been on pioneering missions and have gotten a lot of arrows in our backs. And so what we want to do is give you maps that hopefully will minimize the number of arrows you're going to get. You're going to get arrows. There's no doubt about it. But what we have talked about last time was how your belief systems, and your belief system is really your internal map of the universe. It's the rules that you follow, that you believe to be true, that have been taught to you by people who love you and by people who want to control your life and minimize your pain, or control your life and maximize the effect of your life on theirs. You have to sort all that out. That's what life is about. Life is about sorting out the belief systems that you've been wired with and who you are in that system. So that's the whole Crossroad Diner journey. And it's the way that we make decisions when we come to places that don't fit with the map. And so last time when we were talking about this, John was, after we finished, we had this wonderful conversation about examples of situations like that. And he had a profound one. John, take us into that awakening and the great friend who coached you through that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the idea of helping us to identify our limiting beliefs. So we make decisions based on beliefs, and some of those beliefs are rock solid, and some of them are just flat out false. Those are limiting beliefs, things that are keeping us from moving forward into what I would call our destiny. And so I had, a few years ago, was a part of starting a nonprofit. That nonprofit has been going now for several years, but about 18 months, 2 years ago, had a crisis of belief, we could call it, that as to whether or not I was the right guy to continue leading the nonprofit as the executive director.
We ask questions about ourselves all the time like that. We have self-doubt, and it comes in the form of duty, responsibility, and trueness to the task. It's not just fear. There's always a pretty good reason to go, am I the best person? And we encourage you to do that. That's a question that you should be asking. What happened?
So I was definitely asking that question. And my buddy Joe, one of the leaders in the organization, asked a simple question, but it became a very profound question very quickly. I told him I was just really questioning whether I'm the guy to continue leading. And he said one word. He said, why? And I said, first of all, I'm really struggling in the area of completing some major tasks. I keep kicking cans down the road. He said, why? I said something along the lines, and this is a couple of years ago, so my memory may not be 100%, but I said something along the lines of, I'm just not sure if I'm going to be able to complete it at the level of, not necessarily perfection, but at the level that I truly believe that the organization deserves. And he said, why? At this time, I'm starting to get a little bit annoyed, by the way. Yeah. And I said, why do you keep asking why? And he goes, why don't you just answer the question? I said, all right. I said, here's the thing. I've completed tasks before, and I did what happened with the way they came out. He said, why? I said, because I believe they should be done at a higher level than I completed them. And he said, why? I said, because I grew up in a world where we needed to complete and do things well. I played sports where we ran plays over and over again until they were as close to perfect as possible. And he said, why? And I said, because that's what we need to do. We need to do things with excellence.
Why?
And he said, why? And I'm like, here's the deal. It doesn't matter why. I just know I'm not the guy to do it because I can't reach that excellent level. And he goes, why do you believe that? And I said, because my whole life, I was taught that I'm never enough. And the next question was different. He said, and I'll tell you right now, this is the key to unlock limiting beliefs. He said, John, is that true or is that false? And that changed it right there. Now, it didn't erase my limiting beliefs. It didn't mean that suddenly I was never, but it did help me see that I am enough. I know I'm enough. I'm a pretty darn accomplished guy overall. I've run sales organizations, been a part of major corporations with pretty cool brand names. But our limiting beliefs have a way of crippling us. And we forget all the junk in our, what I call the shitty committee in our head, excuse my fruity language, as they would say on Ted Lasso, that those voices in our head start, as soon as we start having doubts, they start coming after us and go, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. You can't, which is a word we talked about never saying last week. And the reality is we get down to the core of it and we say, is that true or false? Almost every time it's false. It's a limiting belief that we have let creep into our head to keep us from breaking through and moving forward.
That's about as succinct as I've ever heard it put. So let's walk through what the model is there. You've got a stimulus, you've got a discomfort, and you made a decision. I'm the problem. So let's remove me and put somebody more competent in there. And you told your friend, I'm struggling with this. And he said, why? And that caused you to start unpacking why you were not comfortable. There was a disconnect between a deeply held belief that you had that you're not enough and a deeply held passion to serve the needs of this organization or get them served. And your job was to get them served. And you believe that you weren't enough to do it, so someone else should.
That's absolutely correct.
And so the bottom line of all of that is the question, what is the limiting belief? You got to it. What caused that belief? What's its structure is? And the question, is that true?
Yeah.
And what did your gut feel immediately when he asked that question?
Yeah, I knew it was false. I knew it was false. I knew it was not true about me. That didn't mean that it was, like I said, it didn't magically disappear. And you just said something really interesting that I actually didn't say in my story, but it is a really important step. You said, look at why we have that limiting belief. What exactly caused that? And so that is often, especially when you're, the organization I work for or work is about recovery. And so recovery is all about identity and having incorrect beliefs in who we are, our identity. And in my case, part of that is not being enough, which is definitely not true. And I have all kinds of evidence against that. But in the moment of crisis, when we're trying to make major change or we're dealing with some kind of major conflict, I don't know why we default to the not enough instead of the I am enough, but it happens and it happens everywhere. There are people out there that I'm dating currently, a woman that I plan on hopefully dating the rest of my life that is amazingly healthy in that area. She lets things go so quickly and keeps moving forward. Her belief systems are so solid, not perfect. None of us are perfect, but they're so solid that she moves through change like a warm knife through butter. But for most of us, it's not quite that easy.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons that we created this podcast, John. I created Crossroad Diner because of the struggle that people have when they come to decision points in life. And they know that what they're doing isn't it. They don't necessarily know what it looks like. And they certainly don't feel like they're equal or enough yet. And now they feel like I'm enough to know that I need to make a change. I'm enough to know that I need to look at what different looks like and decide whether I'm willing to pay the price to step into that adequacy or to accept that responsibility. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do we navigate change?
Exactly.
There's a lot.
You're taking my lines away from me now, John. So how do we use this knowledge that we just did with that to help our audience navigate change when they come to this. Now, the technique your friend used was to challenge the presupposition or the diagnosis with why, and drill down on why till you get to a definite resonant truth that has to do with choices that you are making, decisions you are making about you, yourself, your value, your skill. And then ask if it's true. Is that a fair analysis of the technique?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So what we would say to you as a result of listening to this episode on challenging limiting beliefs is you need to hear yourself articulate that limiting belief, and then you need to challenge the truth of it. And that why is a great way to get down to the bottom of what is really going on here, because that's really the only question you need to ask. The task that presents itself as the challenge is just the tool that your higher vibrating self has given you to recognize where you are putting a fence around your choices. It's trying to protect you from going into dangerous places you don't know about, or being embarrassed, or letting someone down, letting yourself down. It's trying to protect you. It really has your best interest at heart. And you have to at some point go, I get what you're trying to do for me. And that served me when I was lesser. But now I am trying to step into more. And to step into more, I need to be more. I need to have more competency. I have to have more skills. I have to have more challenges. And the only way I'm going to do that is facing those challenges and developing those muscles. So thank you for protecting me. Thank you for loving me. Trust me a little bit. Let me go and let me run the risk of having some failure, because that's the only thing that's going to build those muscles. Release that part of your unconscious that it was telling you that you're not enough in order to protect you, not to limit you. It wasn't the intent to limit you. The intent was to keep your spirit and your heart and your body safe. Release that and say, not is it untrue as a lie trying to limit me. It's untrue as an assessment of who and what I am and where I'm going. How does that land?
Absolutely. I keep going back to this thought process of when I decided to go to become a nomad and not have a house, not have a rent, not have a mortgage,
You can't do that.
Not have a home to come back to. Yeah. I tell the story of calling my folks, my 83-year-old dad at the time. No, he just turned 84. I shared it with him and he said, what does that mean? I said, I'm not going to have a house. I'm going to have a home. He goes, where are you going to stay? I have friends and family. And he goes, you can't do that. I said, excuse me? I'm 57 years old. What do you mean I can't do that? There's a lot of people that do that. And that idea that he didn't understand things, he loves me. Clearly, he's my dad.
Absolutely.
Wants to protect me. He sees something he doesn't understand in his, instead of being curious, which is what the why question does, he gets fearful and says, you just can't. And that's a great thing to dig into right there, is when you are saying can't, you need to be getting curious instead. Curiosity solves a lot of problems in our world. And the idea of telling other people what they should do or can't do or whatever, when it comes to their hopes and dreams, is definitely where we get limiting beliefs from. Especially people we know and love and we know care. If somebody that cares for me as much as my dad tells me I can't do something, I'm going to listen. It may just be a tiny little bit at 57 versus what it was at 17, which is probably even less. Maybe I should say that when I was 7, your dad can leap tall buildings in a single bound, but I'm still listening because he's dad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get curious what's going on before I just said, yes, sir. And in fact, yes, sir served me very well through a lot of my life.
Right.
But there's a point where John has to start thinking and believing for John, and not because my dad or a preacher or a teacher or a girlfriend or even a wife or whatever tells me what they think I should believe. That's when we start having limiting beliefs. Now, there's a lot of good that can come from that, but we've got to be curious and dig in deeper as to why if that is true or if it is not. We do that by asking why question.
And you make a good point in that there's truth in it. There's truth in it. And the truth is that there's a risk, and that the risk has got downfalls that we know about, downfalls that we don't know about. And I don't know how to deal with some of those. So I don't know that. And so I want to protect you from that. All of that is in our best interest motivationally, not in our best interest as an evolving spirit and person. One of the things that came to my mind through that story, and this goes back to you talking about me being our spiritual differences in approach. The thing that occurred to me was the story of when Jesus got his commission and he went into the wilderness and he was tempted. And what he kept saying was to the temptation, I'll make you rich and powerful. Well, first it started with turn the rock into bread and you won't be hungry anymore. And they said, interesting. What else you got? Oh, I'll make you rich, famous, and everybody will think that you're the best thing in the world. Tempting. Very interesting. What else you got? Throw yourself down and everybody will know that you're the big dang deal and you'll be famous and powerful. And finally went, very tempting. But that's not me. And the guy who taught this lesson to me said the most interesting thing, you cannot be tempted to do something you don't want to do. In this case, Jesus, the Son of God, liked those ideas. They were appealing. They were shortcuts. They were ways to get to something that looked like his mission, but wasn't the mission. He gave it consideration and then stuck with, that's not who I am. And that's not what I'm here to do. It would make me more comfortable in this moment, but it would make it very difficult for me to ever be satisfied. Impossible, even. Those stories, your story, all of these, they're all boiled down to, what do you know about who it is that you are? What do you believe about that? And what are the prices to live that way? And are you going to make the choice to pay those prices? And our job here at the diner is to help you navigate those moments when you face that question and you either stay on the path you've chosen or you change that path based on an obstacle that you either have to go through or around. How do you navigate that? How do you make those decisions? John got to the bottom of, that question through a great coach. When you decide to evolve, when you decide to become more of who it is that you are, these are the things that will come up. Not to stop you, but that you have to develop the ability to move through in order to navigate that change from this ride in the river where it's going and navigating the river and enjoying the river.
Yeah. So good.
Well,
So yeah, I just maybe to put a little bow on it is,
yeah,
the reality is that it also helps us see what we do believe.
yeah,
We can ask the why question and come down to an absolute truth, right? I can ask the why question about something I believe maybe I'm supposed to do. Why? Because this, why? Because this, why? Because this, why? Because in my core, I believe my life experience, when shared with others, can help create change. And if my coach looks at me at that point and says, is that true? I would say, yes, absolutely. And I can make a change towards that.
yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I love the idea of beliefs and how they impact our lives. I love that you brought this topic up, and just for coaches, for you and I working with our clients, it all comes down to that. It's one of the things I love about the defining your mission statement, because it starts with core beliefs. A core belief. What is that your core of? That you're going to maybe willing to die for even. Those are definitive statements about you, beliefs about you and what you believe that guide you down every path. And as we've discussed here, they're not always correct. And this is maybe the last thing I'd like to say is that the reason the coaching profession exists, I believe, is because We've got to get out of ourselves and have somebody else speaking truth into us that can see clearly. Growing up playing football, my best coaches didn't just correct the things I was doing wrong. They believed that I could do it right. And they helped me believe that about myself. And that was a game changer. That is why we're here. That's why the Crossroad Diner exists. That and some really good bacon and scrambled eggs. I love it. I love it. I've enjoyed this. True. Thank you.
Me too. So I'm going to leave you with this today. I think that most of us, when we start examining what we want, at some point in time, we come to the place in our lives where we realize what I want is to feel like I was enough or I did all I could. And I was me. And I was true to that. And then I can take all the consequences that come out of that because I gave what I had and I reached for what I had. And I got help in learning how to reach for what I had with great coaches, great friends. And we hope to be that for you. We hope to be able to point you toward people in your life that will point you toward truth and hold up authentic mirrors that are true. For John Burnett, I'm Steve McCurdy. We'll see you next time at the Crossroad Diner. This has been Crossroad Coaching, episode 64 with John Burnett and host Steve McCurdy. In our odd-numbered episodes, we visit with people from all walks of life who have found themselves needing to navigate change, telling the story of how they did it. Join us and share the link with someone you know who may need to hear the message. See you next time in the Crossroad Diner, the place your spirit goes when it's time to make a change.